To solve this data sufficiency question, we'll go ahead and consider each statement separately first, and then we'll go ahead and consider them together if needed. Before we go ahead and dive into the statements separately, we want to go ahead and consider what the question is actually asking, and if we can extract any information that we need from the question stem. Now, the question's asking, did Marlon donate at least 12 books? So we need some sort of variable to represent this. Let's go ahead and call X the number of books that Marlon donated. If X is the number of books Marlon donated, then we're looking for whether X is greater than or equal to 12 in order to answer the question, because that represents if Marlon donated at least 12 books. So keeping this in mind, let's go ahead and consider each statement separately. We'll go ahead and look at statement 1 first, and we'll do that down here just to give us a little bit more space. So statement 1 says, one of the 5 friends donated 42 books to the library. This must be the greatest number of books that a friend donated. So if we consider there's a total of 80 books that were donated, and 42 were donated from one friend, we have that 80 minus 42, which equals 38. Books are left divided among the other 5 friends that donated books to the library. So we want to go ahead and consider what would be the least value of X. Now, remembering that X represents the number of books that Marlon donated, so it says in our equation, or our question, that Marlon donated the second greatest number of books. So if we're considering the least amount of books that Marlon could have donated, we can set up an equation. So X would represent the books that Marlon donated, plus all of the other books that the other 3 friends donated, which have to be less than Marlon's, because Marlon was the second one, the second greatest books donated. So if we're looking for an equation that represents the least amount of books donated by Marlon, we can set this up and we would have X plus X minus 1 plus X minus 2 plus X minus 3 would equal 38. And each of these values represents how many books the other friends donated if Marlon donated the least amount of books. So we can go ahead and solve this equation for X. We end up with a 4X minus 6 equals 38. So 4X is equal to 44, or X is equal to 11. Now this represents the least amount of books Marlon could donate, so that means that X must be greater than or equal to 11. If X is greater than or equal to 11, it's not necessarily greater than or equal to 12. If, say, X is 11, then we have that X is not greater than or equal to 12. So our answer to our question would be no. But if X is equal to 12, then yeah, X would be greater than or equal to 12. And the answer would be yes. So since we can't definitively answer yes or no to the question for all of the possible X's, this statement alone is not sufficient. So if we scroll back up to our answer choices, we can eliminate some of the answer choices. Anything where statement 1 alone is sufficient, we can eliminate because we know that it is not sufficient. Moving on, we can take a look at statement 2. So statement 2 says Marlon donated fewer than 15 books to the library. So giving us some space down here, let's take a look at statement 2. If Marlon donated less than 15 books from the library, we have X is less than 15. This is a similar case to what we saw at the end of the last statement, is that X could be greater than 12. So say X is 14. In this case, X would be greater than or equal to 12. So the answer to the question would be yes. But if X was, say, 15, or sorry, say X is 6, X would not be greater than or equal to 12. So the answer to the question would be no. Both of these satisfy this statement, but we can't decide whether x is greater than or equal to 12 for all possible x's. So that means that this statement alone is not sufficient. So if we scroll back up, statement 2 is not sufficient alone, so we can eliminate answer choice B. We still have C and E to deal with, so we need to combine the statements in order to solve this question, to find the answer choice. So the last resort would be to combine statement 1 and combining statement 2 together. So scrolling up, let's go ahead and take a look at what we concluded from statement 1. We were able to conclude that x had to be greater than or equal to 11. And for statement 2, it had to be less than 15. So gathering this information in the statements together, we have x is greater than or equal to 11, and we must have that x is less than 15. So the possible values for x are 11, 12, 13, and 14. Now for some of these values, x would be greater than or equal to 12. So the answer to the question would be yes. But for this value, when x is 11, x is not greater than or equal to 12. So the answer to the question would be no. And we run into the same logic that we did in the past two statements, even when they're combined together. So we can't definitively answer the question combining the statements either, so that the statements together are not sufficient. So if we scroll back up, we can actually eliminate answer choice C, and the correct answer would be answer choice E. Statement 1 and 2 together are not sufficient.